It's no secret that Dennis and I are really big advocates and proponents for artificial intelligence, but
Let's
there are some aspects to it.
Benny's big on it. Dennis is buying into it a little bit, but Benny leads the charge.
All right, fair enough. Dennis, it's a very real thing for people to have fear about artificial intelligence. If you've had a job for the last 20, 30 years and it's really the only thing you know, and some, fresh MBA graduate from an Ivy League school says, you know what, we're going to change everything up and AI is going to come for you and there's nothing more to do. That can be a frightening prospect.
When you think back to the 1990s and, we've gone through evolutions of change. You mentioned it in the podcast that we listened to about how Henry Ford introduced automation. That I'm guaranteeing back in those days, that was like earth shattering to that
Mm.
whole world. And so the key point is people evolve and navigate through it. You've got to be open to things and stay on top. And today we talked with Bill May about just how, from a manufacturing standpoint, what's going on with AI. One of the big points, it's not till the near the end, but we talk about mentoring because he mentions that AI is knowledge, but you need people from the standpoint of wisdom. And that's the piece that I think the two come together.
Bill May is the founder and president of High Value Manufacturing Consulting. And he really shares a lot of interesting points. And somebody who is a veteran of the industry, his attitude toward AI is really refreshing. And for those of you out there who have a lot of fear in this space, I think this is really a good one to listen to. Bill has some wisdom and he's been doing this for a long time and he really knows a lot about what the industry looks like and where it's going. So let's have a listen.
WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
I hear it all the time, Dennis, just simply because I work in the technology space and we do a lot of stuff with AI, that AI is coming for my company. AI is coming for my job. AI is going to destroy the world. And I think that if we kind of take a deep breath and relax a little bit, AI is certainly transformative. It is a wonderful mechanism for us to be able to incorporate into our business, but there's just no way that they can replace everything that we do.
Yeah, I think, a previous podcast we had someone hit it. Think of it, it's like an intern coming into an organization. They're not going to replace anybody. They're hopefully an added resource to help you get things done, but you still have to have people overseeing them, making sure they're doing the right things. And AI, it can be good, but it's also, you can't just turn it loose. And so I think all of us are in that transition period. And, there's always those skeptics, but it's like breathe. It's going to be okay, and look at it as a tool. I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, and so it's something that we really need to dive deep into. So we needed to bring in an expert. And Bill, thanks for coming in today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you bet. Hey, well, listen, Bill, I know that your expertise lies in manufacturing space, and I can't think of an industry that probably has been through the decades has been attacked with whether it comes to technology, right? Because back in the day, way before any of us were born, manufacturing was a very human centered process, right? And we look at Henry Ford and how he built his plant so that manufacturing was done with systems. And then suddenly we have different technologies, obviously robotics come into play and computers. And now with AI, it's got to be ripping apart manufacturing. And there's no way manufacturing is going to survive. It's crazy. It's Armageddon, but that's not what you tell us, right?
Now I'm afraid for those doomsayers, that's not what's going to happen. And I think, Benny, your reference back to past history, automation, robotics. I mean, Henry Ford put people on the assembly line. We got to remember, and
Mm.
broke the assembly line. And people thought that was stupid, but actually that created more jobs than any other activity in this country when people
Oh, yeah.
thought about it. And people thought it was going to eliminate them. So the manufacturing sector, the manufacturing space, as you said, Benny, has gone through numerous changes over the years. And you know why? We're still manufacturing stuff. In fact, we're now on a move to bring more manufacturing back to this country. So
Hmm.
I think AI scares a lot of people, and especially in the manufacturing world. Manufacturing is a little conservative, sometimes a little slow to pick up new technologies, but in the long run, it's never really degraded the effect that manufacturing can have on the economy, especially in this country. I'm not
Yeah.
worried personally.
AI isn't gone from manufacturing. Obviously, there are elements of manufacturing that are using AI and benefit from it, right? But not everything. I would imagine there's certain nuanced pieces and maybe even a big chunk of manufacturing that still has to rely on the human factor.
There's no doubt about that. And if I watch, and I've been in manufacturing, you can tell by looking at me many years, and that's all I've done is manufacture stuff ever since I was right out of high school, actually. And there's been a lot of impact on that, but manufacturing always absorbs things. AI has already impacted manufacturing significantly, but more on I'd say, supply chain, financial, marketing, the kind of the extraneous things that have to happen to
Hmm.
support manufacturing. But on the plant floor, I think we're just now starting to see applications of AI. Matter of fact, I'm looking at my own business on how we can adapt more AI into what we do. And I think it will roll down to the shop floor pretty quickly here. But I'm personally think it's going to enhance manufacturing just like automation, robotics, computers, big data. I mean, I could name a long list. Industry 4.0. I mean, we had all these systems that scared people, but in the end, it just made it manufacturing more efficient and made more money for people who do decide to manufacture versus other activities.
Well, and Bill, I think before we started recording, we talked about, and you mentioned, think of AI, it's a tool. If you think of your wall of tools, you don't just have one tool, you have many tools on that wall. And if you don't use them, they're kind of a waste. But if you can figure out ways to use them effectively, it makes life better for all the people involved and not just the one person. And so kind of
Yeah, and
elaborate.
that's a very good point, Dennis. And I use this tool analogy a lot when I speak with people because in manufacturing world, you need to have a pretty big toolbox. And new tools get invented and added every day to your toolbox. And if you just got it, to your point, hanging on the wall, well, you're not being a real effective manager or a business owner and not finding ways to use those tools. AI is a new tool. There's no doubt about it. And I think both of you guys know very well, people are learning and adapting every day how to use
You
AI
bet.
in different aspects.
You bet.
And manufacturing just started. It's just started. And I'm talking about manufacturing on the operating floor level. It just started to embrace AI.
Well, can we dive into that one, Bill? I'm really intrigued by this. I am admittedly a big AI proponent and guy here, but when it comes to AI, it just seems to me in the research that I've done, there are just some things that AI still isn't capable of. Even things like tactile physical tasks. I look at these robots and they're trying to fold like a shirt, and it just it looks ridiculous. They're not doing that good a job. I would imagine like with the maybe irregular shapes or delicate materials and complex assembly, AI is just not able to do that. You need a human to be able to do some of that stuff.
I'll relate an old story. It has little to do with manufacturing, but a lot to do how to apply new technologies. When I was a young engineer, I worked a lot of hours, and every February I would take 2 weeks and I'd go to Mexico and just lay on the beach just to clear my head. And a lot of people, wish I could still do that. Matter of fact, I'll never forget one of my first trips to Mexico. I was probably in my young 20s and pretty naive about what's going on in the world. I never really traveled around the world much. And I landed like it was Cancun, and I get in the cab and I'm driving to my hotel. And I noticed along the road that there was road construction going on, right? And there's people everywhere working with shovels, picks, wheelbarrows. Luckily, I had a cab driver that had some English because I speak little or no Spanish. And I asked him, I said, "Well, why do they have so many people working? Why don't they just buy a dump truck?" So he said, "Well, if we could do that," said, "but then what would all the people do?"
Mm,
And so that stuck with me for a long time because in the world of manufacturing, there are physical activities. You can't eliminate them. I mean, people have tried and they will continue to try to automate things and eliminate people, but sooner or later, you got to have people somewhere in the process. To me, AI will not and cannot eliminate physical activity.
mm.
More importantly, in my mind, and this is an adage that I've heard, I stole this from one of my colleagues. I'm being frank with you. And his saying was, "Artificial intelligence without human intelligence is not going to be very effective." And
I would agree.
it's so true because there's
Yeah.
things now. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but I think eventually AI, artificial intelligence, the automation and processing of intelligence will grow and move into the realm of knowledge. There's no doubt about it. It's probably happening already when you read in the advanced research, somebody can aggregate a lot of intelligence and generate knowledge from that. But all the research I've done, and it's confirmed with multiple people, nobody quite knows how to turn that intelligence and knowledge into wisdom.
Mm.
That's where the human aspect comes. The guy that's been operating on the floor for 25 years, running a piece of equipment, he knows when it's not running like what he hears and what he feels in his hands. And I'm serious about this. It's
Yeah, sure.
vibrations and noise sometimes will tell a experienced operator on the floor whether there's something wrong with this machine or this process. But I don't think we're quite to the point where AI can replace that type of wisdom.
Mhm.
And so I think we're going to be, it may someday. I'm not so naive to think that the artificial intelligence can grow and expand and become much stronger, but we're not. And I was talking with somebody, what was that movie, Space Odyssey with Hal? Remember Hal, the computer?
Yep.
We're not,
2000.
yeah, we're not there yet, especially not
Yeah.
in the manufacturing world. Okay.
But
Al's
you think
walking
of it,
around in the manufacturing floor.
I mean, you think back because I used to be at Frito, and I mean, the Perry plant, it was pretty automated out in the warehouse, not the assembly line, but they had the robots that if you got in their way, they were running you over.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and it just allowed the warehouse to be managed more effectively and efficiently. But you still had to have people because there's
Yeah.
still logic. Now, the level of sometimes the labor had to increase a little bit because they had to have some, it wasn't just physical labor, but now it's some physical and some mental knowledge, wisdom that you point out that you had to know how to operate those pieces of equipment.
Right.
But you still
Yeah.
have to have
I have a good,
people in these processes.
so I have a good story there for you. Again, my daughter just graduated from college this in the spring, and I was talking with one of her friends, sorority mate, and she was an engineer, and this was during the graduation time, and she took a job at Amazon. So I said, "So what do you do? What are you going to do for Amazon as an engineer?" She said, "Well, I'm going to be in one of their warehouses, and my job is I just sit at my desk, and when one of the automation, the robots or one of these things go crazy, I go out and get it running again." So
Yep.
nobody knows how to do that with another robot yet, anyway.
Mm.
The AI, that's what she does. And she says, "I love it because, I'm busy every day." And she did some internships during the summer. So she had some experience with what she was going to do. She said, "I'm busy pretty much all day long during the shift." They have people there 24/7 who are there just to monitor and recorrect or redirect the automation or robots when they lose their mind, if you will. So
You
yeah,
know,
that's just a simple example where now does that take different skills than some people have? Absolutely. That's my point about you better be willing to adapt and understand what AI is about, or you could be obsoleted. But if you're willing
Mhm.
to grow off the wisdom and experience you have in the manufacturing world, especially on the shop floor, and learn a new skill like AI, you're going to be invaluable. You really are. And so I encourage people, don't get too
yeah,
discouraged by it because, Dennis, I think you said earlier, we've been here before.
right. Yeah.
We've all been here before,
You'll
and
have to adapt. You'll have to
we're
change,
still
you
here.
know.
Right?
I always think back to the days when I used to go to the department store as a little kid, and there was that lady in there that would open and close the elevator door. And so, her job went away when they automated elevator doors, but you still had to have people in the department store. It wasn't like everybody was gone. There are a few that are casualties of it. Another great visual one that, Bill, I think your daughter graduated from Auburn, correct? Was she at Auburn?
Right.
This is a visual one. So the Auburn Marching Band, if you've not seen them, you need to Google it because you still have kids in the band marching, but at nighttime they have all these lights and stuff on their helmets that it's AI
Yeah.
focused that then allows that whole show to take it a whole different dimension. To me, that's kind of applies to that shop floor that you're still going to have people that have to do it, but you're able to add other tools or features that take it to a whole different level that you never thought about. The other day, my wife bought a new vacuum sweeper. She's vacuuming. It's got a green light on it. Oh my God, it's amazing how much more dirt you see on the floor that you know now when you're sweeping. And it tells you what percentage did you get the dirt up or not. It's like, okay, that's a little AI tool that just makes sweeping a lot more effectively.
They're everywhere. They're
Yeah,
everywhere.
and I would imagine too, Bill, and you tell me if I'm kind of wrong about this, but in the environment of manufacturing, that it's going to be like a hybrid or a collaboration type of environment where we're going to have AI may be doing things like being able to predict if, if they don't have enough inventory coming in, or a machine needs to be potentially failing, and then the human can kind of work to prevent that, or to make sure that it's fixed, and like robots
QC will
lifting
be
the
another
heavies.
QC will be another area I can see where AI will play probably into it, because it's a
Yeah.
lot of data and a lot of stats of what's going on that a human does, but it's like, okay, instead of putting it in a spreadsheet, it goes into this AI tool and gives response, but then feeds it to somebody else to say, hey, something doesn't look right. And those are types of things that will evolve here pretty quickly, is my guess.
Yeah, the best example I can think of about how things have transitioned, it wasn't that many years ago that we had what was called big data, and it was really focused on manufacturing, a big piece of it, collecting data off the machine tools and off the systems. And to your point, Benny, taking that data and try to predict, okay, what's going to happen next? 2 hours from now, if this happens, 2 hours from now, every time this has happened before, this happened, right? 2 hours later, and it was a downtime issue or a quality issue, whatever it was. And I can remember times when I was running plants, and we would take all that data, we would download it, and then overnight we would process it. And the next morning we would get the data. But guess what? By the next morning, the whole system had changed.
Exactly.
It was too dynamic.
Yeah.
So it was good, and it was good learnings for the engineers on what they needed to focus on, but it didn't help you improve the throughput at that moment in time. AI can process that data in seconds today. So
Yeah.
now all that pre-work of developing data collection and what's called big data, now AI can process it and say, hey, if you don't do something within the next 12 minutes, this is likely to happen. And that's where the operator goes over and he squirts 3 drops of oil on a gear or something and avoids the whole problem.
Yep.
Yep.
Somebody's got to go put the oil on the gear. It is a tool, and it's going to make people more and more capable. There's no doubt about that.
I would imagine that when it comes to, especially in manufacturing, and like literally if thousands, I keep thinking about cars, but I'm sure this applies to plumbing supplies or microcircuitry or whatever it happens to be, but that human decisions are going to be essential, meaning like if there's a safety decision, diagnosing unexpected problems that maybe the AI hasn't seen before, and processes need to be adjusted. I just think in terms of like the good old fashioned, you need to have that human, because if they keep manufacturing something and it's got this defect, and AI didn't pick it up, and the human would say, let's stop the plant right now, it could potentially cost millions of dollars if we're relying too much on AI to do this one thing that a human would have said, stop doing it. Though.
Yeah. And Benny, to come off your point, think about, we've talked about warehousing before, automated warehousing. Think about if there was a fatal flaw and the warehouse went dark for 12 hours, how much revenue that company would lose. It's millions, if not tens of millions of dollars. So AI may be able to say, hey, this is going to happen, but somebody's got to go do something about it. And just like the classmate of my daughter, that's why she's in the plant. If something goes crazy, they're the first line of defense to fix it. They don't ask a robot to go figure out what happened. You've got to have
someone's got to keep those robots.
World,
yeah, someone's got to keep those robots under control. So there you go.
And I would imagine too, and this has to be said because we've all heard it, is that yes, certain jobs, and maybe hopefully the dangerous ones when it comes to manufacturing, those jobs will possibly go away, or they'll be minimized or be made safer. But when those type of activities happen, other opportunities pop up. I'm certain, like the robots that would be affecting manufacturing, suddenly all these people had opportunities to maintain the robots or program the robots or whatever it is to maintain that. But I would say that people need to be able to train the AI systems, and they still need to monitor that quality. You're going to need to have that human being to monitor it, no matter what the AI says. And if you've not heard the term, but AI hallucination, my goodness, in a manufacturing environment, that could wipe out a company if they're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any technology. There has to be some level of controls over it so that it doesn't end up with the wrong. And that's back to the point I made earlier about wisdom. And that's what humans bring to the picture is wisdom.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
that tempers how you utilize that tool. And it's not only unique with AI, all the tools, you need a little wisdom so you know how to best use that tool.
But also too, Bill, you pointed, the current administration is trying to bring more manufacturing back to the states. They're going to have some automation in there because there's not enough bodies to fill all the roles that could potentially be out there. So it's like you have to have some automation, AI, robots doing some of this stuff because there's just not enough bodies to. And there's a lot of people like you and I that are getting close to retirement that the younger ones don't want to work in some of these roles. That's where you do backfill some of these things with some of those more automated tools or systems to kind of help fill
No
it.
doubt. Yeah, you're right on point with that comment because there are, in my mind, the way to extend a senior person's career, if they want to continue to contribute in the manufacturing world, pick up the AI tool and use it. Don't be afraid of
Exactly.
it. I mean,
Right.
just pick it up and use it. You have so much wisdom in your brain from your experience that you can transfer to the younger workers that we just need to do that. If we
Right.
really think we want to change the scope of manufacturing in this country and become globally the leader again, then us or experienced people like myself, we have an obligation to pass that wisdom on. And AI is a great tool, allows you to
Mm.
pass it on very efficiently, very
Right.
effectively.
No,
So
that's a great point.
I see it as, to your point, then it's almost a necessity if we want to continue to grow manufacturing in this company. We have to embrace AI at the plant level. We have to do that.
So, Bill, we talked about AI and wisdom. Wisdom has to be transferred at some point to the younger generation. It just doesn't automatically just jump out of my head into someone else's. And I know looking back at my career, I've had mentors along the way that have radically impacted my performance and allowed me, and I still stay in touch with them today. Thoughts on that part? Because I think that's a piece that people forget.
Well, it is extremely important. And Dennis, like you, I've had some of the best learnings I had is from mentors, whether it was in college, on the job, or even from my personal life perspective, religious perspective. Mentors can really drive points home and make it very understandable and allow you to absorb and transfer your knowledge quicker onto other people as well. So that's a key. And not everybody is cut out to be a mentor, by the way. If you're not very outgoing, you're kind of a very quiet person, then mentoring is going to be a real challenge for you. As you guys can tell from this podcast, I'm not afraid to talk. So I, I consider myself a good mentor because I'm able to talk and relate to people. So it is a subject, and it is related to AI or the introduction of any new technology by that
It
matter.
is.
But in
Yeah.
particular, AI, because some of the older folks like myself, they see AI and they get scared. And I just remind them, remember when you heard robotics and how scared you were then, but what happened, right? And
Mhm.
it is something that this older generation in the manufacturing world, because there's fewer and fewer of us in this country today. It's something we owe to this society is to help mentor the young people who are interested in manufacturing. And AI is an unbelievably good tool to help us do that quickly.
But also
It's the way I kind of look at it.
for business owners, you want to, a lot of times you're trying to replace older employees because they're higher paid. Keep that in mind. That mentor plays a huge role on those new people coming in because otherwise you have a void. And knowing with AI, you need wisdom. Wisdom's not going to come from lack of experience. It's the experience, it's the transfer of knowledge, it's the hard knock things that those mentors are able to share with people. So I encourage business owners to keep that in mind as you're going through this transition.
Bill, this is such a fascinating topic. Obviously, I love hearing, this side of how AI is impacting this particular industry. I think it's fascinating. But I know there are going to be people who have questions, who want to maybe pick your brain or talk to you a little bit about how the manufacturing and AI might be able to coincide and work with their business. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
That's a great question, Benny. I do appreciate it. My company has a website. It's called highvaluemanufacturingconsulting.com. Consulting.com. Anyone can go on there, and there's a couple of things they can do. Number one, I'd say go to my resources tab, and you'll find where you can look at my blogs. And there's a search engine that's built into my website for the blogs. Just punch in AI, punch in automation, punch in whatever you want, and it'll bring up a list of blogs that me and my staff have written over the 15 or so years I've been in business. And they can get a lot of information from that. So again, AI and mentoring are both keywords that will take you to some blogs about what we've done. Also on my website, there's a way to every website has, how do you contact me? And you can actually go in if you want, and you can schedule a 30-minute free consultation where we just talk. What's your issues? I've had people call me up, guys in Canada was wanting to start a new company, didn't know anything about automotive manufacturing. And I spent actually about an hour and a half on the phone with them, just giving them some tips on what they could do. So I'm willing to do that to owners, and there's no charge for that. I feel,
Wow.
again, back to my earlier comments, I have an obligation to give back my knowledge, my wisdom, and I'm willing to do that. So that's the best way, Benny, to get hold of me, is just go out to my website and get a can of beer and stroll around for a couple hours.
Well, you heard it. Bill's going to spread to you his wisdom. And I'm not going to say not charge you, but he'll give you 30 minutes at least. I don't want no one ever call him up and give him an hour and a half every single time. Don't do that.
You'll learn a lot from Bill. I've known Bill
Yeah.
for about 15 years, and it's just lots of insight. And Bill, it's great having you on here. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was
Yeah.
really valuable.
Thank you, Bill.
I appreciate you guys inviting me. It was a real enjoyable time. So I do appreciate it. It's been a very enjoyable experience. Thank you both.
You've been listening to WFH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.